realtor, and my husband is a dentist in Ocala in the Villages. I don't know if I can expand on that too much, but yeah. Very good care of them, yes.
Well, that's always good. So, on behalf of National Spouses Day, tell us where you met.
Work. I was there first.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
I was there first. Yes.
Oh, and who
Patrick Dolder.
No, I haven't.
Hello everyone, I'm Tori Mason with Leading Marketing Solutions. We are a full-service marketing agency, but we specialize in event marketing.
Same question. Where did you meet your spouse or significant other?
Middle school.
She was nervous.
Give her a break. She's only known him for a week. That's all the guests. Apparently, awesome.
What's his name?
Any OBL announcements, Nancy, before you sit down? OBL announcements. Where are we with 10-minute infomercials coming up?
Okay, we are completely open through the month of February. If I could just please encourage everybody to please sign up for these infomercials. This is very, very important to each and every one of us. This is why we are here. To get your business out there, we need to get to know you and your business. So if you will please sign up every single week moving forward, except for March 31st is open. So please see.
Very good. Also, 50/50. Where is he? He's hiding behind Colin. Mr. Jerry has the 50/50 going around. Say again.
I said you're looking very well.
This guy, man, you need to run for politics because you're quick and deceitful. So, just saying. Awesome. Well, we have a very special presentation this morning. If you would, I like to do this, and y'all probably won't get tired of this, but if you would, I'd like you to stand to your feet, please. And if you would, with the biggest OBL, warmest welcome applause you can give, if you would, please welcome Mr. Clark Yandel to the stage. Come on up, my brother. Yes, sir. So thankful for you, Clark. You didn't get to make it last week, but I know that you're already aware of this, but Clark was voted on as the OBL Member of the Year. And we have this amazing, beautiful plaque we would like to honor him with. And it says, in recognition of your outstanding contributions and dedication to the advancement of our organization. And without question, Mr. Yandel has done tremendous things for this organization, and not just this organization, for our community, for the North Magnolia Miracle Mile, we call it. Him and Floyd Hirschberger have just been absolutely instrumental in redeveloping that area. For those of you, if you've never been down that side by his business, or for those of you that's been here a minute, we'll just say it a minute, like me, what a transformation they've done. Those things only happen when you have people like Clark and Floyd that are willing to roll up their sleeves and have a heart for the community that we live and serve in. So Clark, with a heartfelt appreciation, we'd like to present this to you and just thank you for all of your dedication that you show to this club and to this community. We love you. God bless you. Let me get the official stuff here. Awesome. Thank you, sir. Very good. That looks really good. Awesome. So just jump right in. Anybody have a thought for the day? I don't want to miss anything. So anybody have an inspirational thought for the day? Awesome. Miss Connie's got a thought for the day.
This is so appropriate because I'm sitting next to Joe Martone. So I'm only responsible for what I say. Hey, you two. Hi. All right. Here's our thought for today. I'm only responsible for what I say, not for what you understand.
Let me pass by out of striking distance, and that coming from a woman.
It's a good thing you backed away. No. Discipline is choosing what we want most over what we want now.
I like that. Say that again. Discipline is choosing
What we want most over what we want now.
I kind of can twist that and say that's where we should be focused on what matters more or most than what we think matters more. That's him.
Well, that kind of flows right into what I'm going to be saying. When you speak to somebody, look them in the eye, because that's the only way you're going to see who they really are.
Man, it's about to get real up in here this morning. Awesome. Well, thank you all very much. We're going to jump right in and get started. We have an extremely special guest this morning, Chief Balkan from Ocala Police Department. He's going to come in and Chief, thank you. Already, I know you have many, many years dedicated with us, and how you had to step into that. I know it's extremely difficult, but I know that it's a well-deserved promotion for you and just the leadership that you've had, especially with Chief Graham over the years too. And you guys did an amazing job in protecting our community. So with that, if we give a warm welcome for the Chief, please.
Thanks, sir. I appreciate that. Can everybody hear me okay? In the back there, great. My name's Mike Balkan. I'm the new police chief for your Ocala Police Department. And it's an honor to be here with you this morning. I've spent a lot of time over the past couple of months coming out and speaking to groups. If you know me, you know I'm not a good public speaker. I readily admit that. You want me standing still? Is that what you're fine? Okay. And I don't stand still well for the camera, so I'm going to move about a bit. Yeah, it's been an interesting ride for me. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. I want to talk a little bit about the police department and our transition and what we're going to do, trying to move forward. I've been limited to about 15 minutes. We want to let y'all eat, and I've got budget presentations all day. So with that, it's great to be here. It's great to see a lot of familiar faces. Mr. Yandel and I were talking before we got breakfast about a stakeout that the police department was doing in his business years and years ago, and he told me he got a call from one of our dispatchers about 4 a.m. saying, "Hey, Mr. Yandel, we've got a cop on your roof. We just want to let you know we were doing stakeouts on business across the street." And as I thought about that, Mr. Yandel, I realized I was on that stakeout. I think I was the one on your roof. But anyway, I've been with the police department for it'll be 27 years here in April. And I spent the majority of my career cutting teeth in investigations. So I was a detective. I apologize for those of you that have heard me speak. You're going to hear me talk about the same things. I was primarily a detective most of my career. So I started working felony property crimes, burglaries, auto thefts, things like that. And then they drug me into major crimes where I started working rapes, robberies, and homicide. And spent the majority of my career either working those cases or supervising the detectives that work those cases. So when you do that kind of work, you really get out and you get to meet a lot of the folks that help run this community, meaning prosecutors, judges, defense attorneys, things like that. You get to know a lot of people and you get to do what I think is a lot of good. But, so over that 27 years, I've been assigned to just about every unit in the agency, moved along and was promoted through the ranks, primarily under Chief Graham, up until about 3 years ago when I was promoted up to his deputy chief. And we were rocking and rolling, making some really great strides to decrease the crime rate in Ocala, to add personnel to the agency in order to keep up with the growth here in Ocala, which is tremendous right now. We're trying to keep up with that growth. And then October 25th happened and everything changed. So You know, Chief Graham and I had a lot in common. We were, I would say, dear friends and colleagues. He was a great mentor, and he was ingenious. He was sometimes diabolical, I would call him, in how he operated and how he got things accomplished. But a dear friend, so he'll be back. So those of you that knew him, called him a friend. I'm sorry for your loss as well. So anyway, we had to pick up October 26th and try to move forward somehow. We've got 300 personnel at the police department, about 200 sworn police officers, another 100 non-sworn folks that help us, you know, get our mission accomplished. And we had to figure out a way to take care of these folks, make sure that they were mentally and physically fit enough to carry on the job, right? I mean, these are human beings. They love their chief, their leader, and that's a difficult thing for us to do because cops don't ask for help. We give help, right? We're not good at asking for help. So, you know, that's been difficult trying to identify those folks that might be in jeopardy of, you know, having some trouble moving forward. I think we did done a pretty good job of identifying those folks, giving the help that we need to our folks first so we can go out in the community and help those that we're calling for help. So, so we're trying to move forward in that respect internally. Externally, Chaplain Kenny and I were talking, you know, about what's really near and dear to me, which is similar to what was near and dear to Chief Graham, right? If you've watched the news at all, read the newspaper, been to any meeting in Ocala, certainly you've heard about the opioid epidemic that we're dealing with really across the country. It's amazing. I'll say this. I said this to the fire chief yesterday. I said, you know, in Ocala, we average about 8 homicides a year. We know that. We're going to have anywhere from 7 to 9 homicides a year. We average 8. I can tell you if that number doubled to 16, they should fire the police chief. Matter of fact, I would resign, right, because clearly I'm ineffective at doing my job. But we lost 41 people to opioid overdoses in Ocala last year. That's crazy, right? That's something that I can't even wrap my head around. And I don't want to get into how, you know, the opioid epidemic started with the pill mills and all that. That's a long story. But the bottom line is, you know, we're responding to opioid overdoses at an alarming rate. We're saving a tremendous amount of people with Narcan. We're using our amnesty program to try to prevent those overdoses to begin with. But through all that, through the fire department's paramedicine program, their Narcan Leave Behind program, our numbers are still climbing, which is not something we're used to, right? We're used to throwing resources at a problem. We solve the problem, then we move on. I don't know how we're going to deal with this. I was at a meeting at the county commission yesterday where the fire departments were talking about creating a paramedicine program throughout the county so we can have more of an impact as a community, and we're in full support of that. I hope it's more successful than what we've been able to accomplish so far, because I can tell you, heroin and specifically fentanyl have infiltrated our community in a pervasive manner, and it affects everyone across all walks of life. We are responding to overdoses of young kids, the elderly, you name it. It doesn't matter if you're rich, poor, black, white, it doesn't matter. And the resources, as sad as that is, the resources that we're having to put towards those efforts obviously are pulling resources away from, you know, our normal crime fighting tactics, what we normally do. So this is a challenging time for us. It's something that I've not seen in 27 years of being a cop. So we're living in a tumultuous, uncertain time, I can tell you that, and we're trying to do as best we can to combat that. And I don't know what the future looks like with the opioids. I really don't. But anyway, so that's near and dear. We're going to continue those efforts and continue trying to save lives and really build more community partnerships to help us get that accomplished. And I'll stop talking about that. Yes.
I would like to ask a question if that's. Well, I know I don't.
Please. No, I'm
in there, but one's on my heart. Have you seen over the last couple of years with the opioid issue, and then especially the last year and a half with the COVID, the isolation issues? Have you seen or been able to track? Has there been an increase in that we could contribute to the?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I actually got an email. I won't say from who. I got an email from a school board member last night, who had gotten their hands on a chart that reflected the COVID spike that was real similar to our overdose spike. So he makes a good point. You know, when we try to track a lot of this data, it's amazing what issues can contribute to each other to cause that rise and fall. You know, when COVID really got into full swing back roughly March, about March of last year, we were I don't want to say enjoying the times, but the crime rate dropped.
Oh, sure.
Right, it dropped dramatically, and it was easy for me to go in front of city council and say, yeah, we're doing a great job. We weren't doing anything different. I mean, people were staying in. So crime in general dropped. However, domestic violence, right? So it's funny how these things are really attached, and opioids was the same way. Same with the holidays. You know, when most of us look at, you know, Christmas time as it's a great time of the year, right? It's the best time of the year, a great season, families come together. You know, unfortunately, there's a population in our community, in every community, that's the worst time of the year. You know, depression is at an all-time high, suicide rates skyrocket. So you bring up a good point. All these things are intertwined, and we have to figure out really better ways, more effective ways of dealing with them. But secondly, near and dear to, I know Chief Graham's heart, certainly to mine, is our youth. Somebody lose an earring or a, I think put that right there. Is our youth, and obviously it's a little self-serving for us because we know if we can catch our youth, you know, really when they're that big, we can have more of an impact on them, or maybe have to have less of an impact on their lives when they get bigger. You know, we contribute with funding and manpower to the Public Policy Institute study that's dealing with, you know, how do we get kids to be good? I mean, that sounds really like a very simple question, but that's really what we're trying to do, because, you know, we know that once they're 15, 16 years old, we've lost. If they're already committing felonies, it's rare that we can really have an impact and pull those back. It's very difficult for us to do that. However, we can impact them when they're this big and keep on the straight and narrow. That's really what that PPI study is looking at right now. We contribute manpower and funding. Chief Graham, matter of fact, funded them with a $10,000 grant to try to get that study off the ground and really have more of an impact on our juvenile crime. And I talked about this yesterday at the Stiletto Network. When they told me I was speaking at the Stiletto Network, I got so scared. I had no idea what I was getting into. But they're a great group of women there that are, I think, doing some great things in the community as well. But I talked about juvenile crime, and I think what's really a misconception or the wrong perception about, you know, what happens to a kid when he commits a crime. Right? I mean, and when I say kid, I mean 14, 15 years old. I think a lot of people think, hey, he's handcuffed and he's drugged off to juvie, right, and never be seen again. And that's really not the case. You know, matter of fact, we fight that battle where we're arresting the same kids over and over and over again for high-level felonies and having to bring them back and drop them off at mom's house. You know, because of the state scoring system and what we do with our kids. If I run past my time, just throw something at me.
Yes, sir, you're good.
So, and I'm not a proponent of locking 13, 14-year-old kids up. That's not what I'm saying. But there are, I would argue, most cops are going to tell you at least that there's little repercussion for kids. There's, you know, I think they learn early on that at least in Florida, crime does pay. There's little consequence when you commit felonies and victimize people in our community. And my problem with that is, again, I don't want to see kids locked up, but I do think that there should be consequences to your actions at a young age, so you don't continue to commit more and more, you know, progressively more violent and destructive behaviors that are ultimately going to land you in prison when you turn 17 or 18. So that's really our goal, is to try to talk to our legislators. I'll be meeting with Senator Perry, with the chiefs, and hopefully the sheriff next month to discuss those types of things. Hey, I'm not sure we're getting it right. I'm really not sure that we're getting it right here, because our goal is to protect life and property. That includes that little kid that's committing crime. I don't want to see him go to prison when he's 17, but there's got to be I think we're missing a piece. I really do as a community. So we're gonna try to work on that. And in doing so, we did create, and it was Chief Graham's idea, so I'm not going to take credit, but to better engage the community, specifically the kids, the Boys and Girls Club, different groups that are out there that are really at risk. Chief Graham came to me a year ago and said, we really need a unit that's dedicated to that. We all of our units say we do that, and we do an okay job of going out and doing different events, but we didn't really have somebody dedicated to spearhead those efforts. So the chief said, I really want an individual that we can look at and say, you're the person, you're responsible for getting this message out and pointing our folks in the right direction. And he said, so let's create that spot. So we had a major, it's actually Major Tara Woods, who's been there for 30 years now, who's going to retire at the end of February and transition full-time into a community liaison position. And her job will be, it is right now, actually, she's already kind of moved in that, is to better engage the police department with the community, have more of an impact with our youth. And she's already started some great programs. There's a reading program coming up. There's going to be different events where we really can team up cops with kids. And what I told her, typically we would go out and we would do an event, and the kids would come in, they'd do a raffle or whatever, the kids would win a football or whatever. And I said, that's great to give these kids these little items, but how about this? Let's change it up and let's give them experiences. The football is going to go away, they're going to lose it, the bicycle is going to rust, whatever. Let's take these kids and really show them, that although they may live in poverty now, they may live in the projects, they may be witnessing crime and domestic violence on a daily basis, there is a world outside of that world that they're seeing, right? So, and she said, what do you have in mind? This was obviously a year ago. I said, how great would it be for the police chief to take some of these kids out and take them fishing? Take them out on Lake Weird. Take them, I surf a lot. Surfing is my favorite pastime. I said, how cool would it be to take a group of 5 or 6, kids that are at risk and take them to the beach? Let's go surfing. Let's show them, what we do, right? Which it's not just living to live. There's a bigger purpose, right? That we help people, that we engage others, and we try to make a difference, and we really want to show them that. So that's really how we're gonna move forward with that community engagement while we fight crime, while we do this. One of the as it relates to kids, one of the programs that I really want to get kicked off and off the ground is our ICAC program, Internet Crimes Against Children. If you've watched, I'm not a YouTube guy or a Facebook guy. When I made chief, my wife said, "You really got to have a Facebook page." And I'm like, I don't know how to do it. So if you friended me, I didn't respond. If you sent me a message, it's not because I didn't want to, it's because I don't know how. And I'm working on that. My wife's trying to train me, as is my daughter. But if you're on Facebook, you've probably seen, some of you may have seen, there's a gentleman, there's actually a group of men that do the whole catch a predator thing on their own, right? Where they're setting up, grown men, pedophiles that are trying to pick up kids. When we started seeing these videos online and realized this was going on in Ocala, it was alarming. We knew it happened, and we would do operations on occasion to combat these types of crimes, but we didn't have a dedicated detective or a team of detectives to deal with that. So, we had this guy posted videos of him setting up pedophiles and meeting them at the mall. Well, I've got a problem with that. I go to my detective supervisor and say, look, if it's that easy, if he can do it, we should be doing this every day. We cannot have this in our community. I mean, short of a homicide, that's probably the worst crime you can commit, right? Molesting a kid in our community. So we're working on getting that unit off the ground as well. So, that's me. I come from very humble beginnings. Very humble. If you've heard my story, I was on food stamps the majority of my time as well. The entire time I lived with my parents. We ate the government cheese, as I say. We had food stamps, and ultimately I was a high school dropout. My mom abandoned the family, and my dad moved away to North Carolina and left me here. I moved in with some friends, and I've been paying electric bills ever since I was 15. On the note of the question asked earlier, I met my wife when I was 12 on the school bus going to middle school as well. But humble beginnings, so I get it. I get that there's issues and problems in our community that are socioeconomic that, quite frankly, I can have a little impact on as a police chief. I can't fix those types of problems, but we can certainly help. We can start with our youth, try to make sure they're on the right track, engage with the community. And yes, sir. Question.
Big question.
Yes, sir.
You have all these projects that you want to put out there that are benefiting the children.
Sure.
And you're ready to rock and roll with it. How are you getting the budget? How are you getting the money to do it?
That's a great question. And timely too, because when I leave here, I'm going to budget meetings that will last the rest of the week, throughout the day. So, so I'll say this, you know, the county commission was kind enough to put the penny sales tax back on the ballot. Our community was kind enough to vote that, and I think primarily because of their support of law enforcement. Obviously, it was for road infrastructure and things like that as well. We need that, but I'm not sure it would have went through without, you know, the support that they have for law enforcement. And we thoroughly enjoy a great amount of support here in Marion County for law enforcement, despite what you see sensationalized on national news. I do want to say that. Good question. The city's been great about funding a couple things. One, a 10-man violent crimes unit that Chief Raymond asked for just over a year ago. That's an expensive purchase. 10 new cops positions to deal with violent crimes because we were seeing a big spike in gang-related shootings. So we accomplished that. Major Woods' new position, the community liaison, is important to everybody across the city. So that was easily funded as well. But he brings up a good point. You know, we generally approach our budget in law enforcement almost anecdotally. It's almost yeah, you know, the cops seem like they're getting real busy out there. We might want to think about adding a couple positions. It's great that this is a business leader meeting. It's very non-business plan specific. It's anecdotal almost. And we talked about that. Chief Grant and I talked about, you know, our inability in the past or just unwillingness maybe to really keep up with the growth of the city, of the county. If you look around, there's tremendous growth, especially out west, in the southwest on 200, and it's incumbent upon us to realize that growth is coming and really get ahead of the curve and try to, you know, staffing is one of my biggest issues, especially in today's day and age when it's not that easy to recruit and retain, you know, qualified personnel as cops. So looking ahead and realizing, hey, if the county is putting in 1,000 homes out on 200 and another 200 businesses, guess what you got to have? You got to have more cops. You know, that's going to drive, the crime is going to, numbers are going to go up, you know, just because of sheer volume. Traffic crashes are going to go up, roadway congestion, all these things we deal with every day. So, you know, we're in the budget process now. We were looking at a very bright, I think, coming year in October with the penny sales tax. You know, the fire assessment issue is looming. I don't know how that's going to affect us yet. I don't think it's going to be good, but I'm hopeful that you know that we fund the city. Public safety to me is paramount, and I mean, you know, fire, rescue, public, you know, police. So it's a good question and a lot of unknowns right there until we get further along in the budget process. Yes, sir.
I have a question. My bank account got hacked Friday night. What law enforcement agency handles that?
Good question. Typically it would be us. The Ocala Police Department is a full service agency. We handle everything from the cat in the tree to the quadruple homicide. There does become an issue with jurisdiction if it's done online, but typically if the victim's here, we will at the very least initiate that, even if we have to hand off that case to the FBI. So everybody knows we do have TFOs or task force officers, my detectives that are assigned to the FBI and ATF. So where some people look at that as maybe a waste of manpower, it's a tremendous asset for us because it brings to bear the entire weight of the federal government if we need it to help solve your bank account hacking case. So you should be calling local law enforcement first. A lot of those cases end up getting prosecuted interstate, you know, with the feds' help, or even if it's a state level, if they're a statewide prosecutor, if the offender's down in South Florida. But it should start with your local law enforcement. You should be calling OPD, for sure.
Thank you.
5 minutes. I'm going to stop talking about me, and I do like to open it up for questions because I think sometimes I miss a lot of things that people want to really talk about. Yes, sir.
So you mentioned earlier that you're a surfer. Where is Big Sur? How did you get involved?
Okay. Good question. Good question. So when I was a kid, loved the beach. My family, when I was with my dad, went to the beach all the time and got into surfing when I was about 10, 11, old junkie pawn shop surfboard. And the question on the surf size, it depends. And I've learned this over the years. It depends on wind direction, the shape of the coast where you're surfing. I surf in Norman by the Sea. There's a little park up there right on A1A. It's great shower facilities, and with the right wind direction and ground swell waves, it's a nice right-handed surf break there. There was another question somewhere back here. Yes, ma'am.
So first, I just want to thank you so much. I can see your passion. I'm really excited about the things to come. What a great shadow you're walking in. Greg was a great leader in our community. But I'm curious, when you talk about staffing and staffing being a challenge, I'm just curious, what is it? Is it the current climate, the racial tensions? Is it our rate of pay here in Ocala? Is it the physical demands? What is the real challenge with recruiting and getting staffing?
So yes, to all that. Bygone years, we had, so how this works, for those of you that don't know, if you want to be a police officer, you can go out to the College of Central Florida, sign up for a police academy, pay them, over the course, probably a couple $1,000, maybe $3,000, for a 6-month program to get certified in criminal justice to be a cop. And then you can be a cop anywhere in the state. Bygone years, there were kids fighting for jobs. Matter of fact, when I graduated recruit school back in 91, I graduated second in my academy. I had no baggage, I had no arrests, nothing negative in my background, and I couldn't buy a job in the state of Florida. And I absolutely mean it. I went from, I'm an Ocala native, so obviously started here, couldn't get a job here, so I started looking. I went from Jacksonville to Vero Beach, North Miami, really on the East Coast, from Tallahassee to Treasure Island on the West Coast, which is down by Tampa, and everywhere in between. I didn't want to work there. I wanted to work here in my hometown, right? I'm gonna have an impact and do a really tough job. I want to do it here. But you couldn't buy a job, and here's why. So if you remember a guy named Rodney King, out in LA riots, when the Rodney King and the LA riots had just happened before I graduated. And so we had police chiefs and sheriffs across the country realizing, and correctly, rightly so, that, hey, our police force doesn't match the demographics of the people that we serve. We've got the typical cop, older white guy. That's what they were, right? That's historically what cops were around the country. I could not buy a job. I looked for about a year. To the point that I went and took the ASVAB test and was about to join the Army. I had to do something, right? So finally Don Moreland called me up and said, hey, I'll give you a shot in the jail, and that's how I started my career. But so I think it depends. I don't think pay, as much as I want to stand here and tell you, we need to pay our cops $55,000 a year to start, I don't know that that's really it. We're competitive. Matter of fact, Ocala PD was the highest paid in the county for a good while until Sheriff Woods messed me up and raised his starting salary. Now, can cops go to Gainesville and make $5,000 to $7,000 more a year to start? Yeah, they can. They can. There's a bigger tax base. It's just a different funding source up there. Can we do better? Yeah, we can do better. I would like to see our pay, increase as the city grows and as we're trying to stay competitive. I think a lot of these young kids are looking at law enforcement like, I don't know that I want to stand out there on a riot line and get spit on and cussed at and kicked in the face. And that's definitely an issue. Now, our numbers in recruit schools, the numbers are still there. I would argue that maybe the number of those that are in recruit schools, and I don't mean just ours around the state, the percentage of those that will ever make it to be a cop are probably a lot lower now because they come with baggage. I tell them that nowadays, and this is about the size of a typical recruit class, and by the numbers I can tell you, and I walk in and tell them this. I said, by the numbers, this half of you will never get a job in law enforcement. You're wasting your money. I picked the wrong side. No, because of their background, things that it's going to keep them from being a cop because there's standards that have to be met, and based on their background, they're not going to be cops. So out of this half, only half of you will live to see, not live to see, but will. That's a bad way to put it. Only half of this half will last long enough in their career to see a pension. Right, 25 years. That's what we're looking at. by the numbers, because they're just through attrition, people move on, discipline, you name it, that's just how it works. So think about how that drops down my candidate pool, right? Out of this whole room, I really only got about 8 of you that potentially are gonna, be a lasting employee for me. And I'm fighting, yes, Sheriff Woods, Alachua County, you name it, FDLE, all the, I'm competing with them to try to recruit and then retain those employees. So yeah, I do think that's part of the problem. I think people are looking at this like, who the hell would want to do that job, right? I think, and I say this everywhere I go, it is the absolute best job on the planet. I absolutely believe that. Our cops bear witness to the absolute worst that mankind has to offer. But when they when they put the badge on and they take that oath, they're buying a ticket front row ticket to the greatest show on earth. And they'll see the best, the absolute worst that mankind has to offer, but they'll see the best too. It's a tremendous job. I think it's extremely rewarding. And with that, I think he's pushing me off the mic.
Awesome. Maybe you can stick around for a couple minutes if somebody has another specific question, but absolutely, just thank you for what you do by and large. Real quick, Dad, I had a passion when I first moved to Ocala and got hired by the city of Ocala. I was a meter reader, and I'm like, ooh, I had a passion to want to be a police officer. And in my research, you guys had just, I think, eliminated the sponsorship program where they'd actually sponsor someone to go to school. You had all this criteria to meet. A job in energy conservation opened up within the electric department. And I weighed my options. I made $1,200 a year more to be an energy conservation guy that people were inviting into my house than a police officer that I was going to get shot at. So, but my hat's off to you guys.
Can I say one more thing? Just real quick on that note, just back on that note, and then I'll shut up. If we are looking for officers, I'm about 10 down right now. That number's going to increase with retirements. If anybody in here knows somebody that wants to be a police officer or is even remotely interested, send them my way. We will sponsor them through recruit school. In other words, I will hire them if they can get through backgrounds. I will hire them. I will pay them a small salary while they attend school. I will pay for the school. I'll pay for the bullets that they shoot. It'll be cost-free for them. They'll earn a small salary, and when they get out of recruit school in 6 months, they'll start out at $41,500 a year with all the benefits and a great career ahead of them. So if you do know somebody, kids, cousins, nephews, nieces, I don't care. Diversity is key for me. So especially if you know any minorities, send them my way. We'd love to hire them.
So I guess that rules out old white guys. Awesome. 50-50. Going once, going twice. Tell us, Jerry, what do we got? What shall they win?
$28 each.
$28 each. Could we have our lovely Miss Vanna White roll the ticket for us? Just teasing. Last three numbers are? 861. Woohoo! Miss Albie, the food czar. Miss Carol. Awesome. So, Nancy, do you have a sorry? Okay, we'll let our guest that just showed up speak.
Yes, ma'am. Sonda Eunice with Leading Marketing Solutions, and Colin brought me against my will. I am divorced.